Hello and welcome back. I'm Rick Hoffman, Global TME here at HPE Aruba Networking. This is the StackStorm Deep Dive. We're looking into how StackStorm works piece by piece. We already talked about rules and sessions, but what about these things called actions? That's what we're going to talk about in today's episode. So what do actions do? Well, when I run a rule, I can say, go do this action. Well, I point it at the name of the action. Well, the action itself could be just a single thing that has to get done, or a whole entire workflow that can bifurcate and come together. Very complex stuff. So let's dive in and see how actions add to StackStorm.
Actions are the workhorse of StackStorm. They're the things that actually go out and change the world, right? And there's different runner types for each action. So it could literally be like there's 13 different runner types that I counted. And you can do a lot of different things. You can run a local shell command, a remote shell command, or a remote shell script, a remote Windows command, Python script. You can do HTTP request, and you can do the workflow with Orchestra. So this is just a few of them, but based on the runner type, you can use different parts of code that you may have already written for automation. So you may have Python scripts out there that do some really cool automation. Well, you can take those Python scripts and we can convert them into actions. So when we look at an action in the pack, there's an actions folder where our actions are. So when we look in there, actions will always have the file that's going to run. So in this case, we're going to run a Python script called load HP nimble alarms. But I'll have a YAML file that kind of introduces the Python script. It sets up the variables that the Python script may need. And it's going to look like this on the entry point. So you can see here, I have a name of the action, the pack that it belongs to, a description. The runner type is going to be a Python script, and my entry point is going to point to the Python file. And both of these files, the YAML file and the Python file, need to be in the actions directory. Now, this particular action is going to require some input. So I'm going to give it some parameters, and those parameters is a variable called alarms. And it's required. I've got that set to true, and it's just an array. So when this action runs, I'm going to make sure, if I'm in a workflow calling this action, I'm going to make sure that there's a variable called alarms that's an array that I can feed to this and have it work. So when we look at this alarms, we get to the Python script, and you can see where I'm pulling the alarms variable in here. And then it will just go ahead and do its thing. It'll build a new alarm, and it'll get in this this loop, and it will say, hey, for every alarm in this array alarms, I'm going to do this. And at the bottom of this, I'm going to write a record out to a Mongo database. I'm going to insert one, and just come right back around and keep doing this until I processed all of this. That's kind of how the alarms look. Now I'm going to jump out of this for a second and show you our alarm. I'm going to go down to our pack that we're going to use, the StackStorm Swappy, and show you that there's a rule. I'm sorry, an action down here, and it's going to be called get people. So we have get people YAML file. This is the setup file that says there's a get people is the name of the action. It's in the Swappy pack. It's a Python script, and it's pointing at get people. And I can see here that this particular action doesn't take anything. No, it doesn't take any parameters, right? So it's just going to go and do what we want. So that means that we could probably come over here, and if we log in st2 admin, let's make sure that we're logged in, right? Boom, and we'll just authenticate, and then I'll say st2 action list dash p SW API. So we're going to look at that, and there's our swappy get people. And if we just run it, we can say sd2 run SWAPI that get people, right? And so now I'm looking at getting some people here, and I'm manually running this action from the StackStorm client to show you what it's going to go do. It's going to go out and it's going to run the API to go and get the people from the swappy API. And so this is a good thing when you're testing an action. I'm watching it iterate through the process. So that's a good thing. We want to see that. The other thing here is action should just be single things like go get the people, or take the people and put it in a database, or go get all the people out of the database. They're just like single-minded things. That way, these are just tools that we can call from any workflow. And I can say, oh, I need that action from that pack, that action from that pack, another one from that pack, and I'm just going to string them all together and create a workflow. So actions should be very simple, one task at a time type of things. So that also makes them pretty easy to create and put together. Okay, it finally gave up the ghost and gave us our array that we requested back from the API. And you can see here it's like you get the names, the height, the weight, hair color, skin color, species, and a whole bunch of other things. So there is a definite schema to what you're getting back. And what I will do when I'm working on this, I will create an extra little directory here where I throw things in, and I have this doc folder, and I have a schema folder in there. So for people, I know exactly now what I'm going to be getting back from that API. So I use this during my development to build my actions so I can keep track of all the key value pairs. It's easier for me to see like this. So that's what I'm doing. But it definitely worked. It sent us back. We just ran an action from the command line. Now we can use those actions in workflows, and we can knit them together any way we want. Any action from any pack, it doesn't matter. But that's actions in a nutshell. We'll go through this a little bit more as we get through the course, but do me a favor, stay tuned. We're getting through this. We're about halfway through the course. So we got a lot of really interesting stuff coming up in the next lecture. We're going to talk about workflows next. So stay tuned, and I'll catch you in the next chapter.